Welcome to the Championship Club podcast. I'm your host, Mike Gully, and co-hosting with me is a man with over 300 Championship Rugby appearances. It's Ben Gulliver. Be sure to check us out on social media at Champ Clubs Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and head to YouTube to like and subscribe to the channel. Gully, here we are, episode 3. We're back again, which is great. People must still be listening, and it's quite exciting so far, isn't it?
Oh mate, it's been really good, and what surprised me is the amount of players that are currently in the league that are supporting us and following us. And then there's guys that have been retired from the championship, and they're sort of reaching out and saying, "Yeah, this is good." It's telling the stories that we all know as players and guys that are in it, but not many other people do. So really pleased with how it's going. Really exciting to see where we go with it, and it's just great to be talking positively about Championship Rugby, which I'll drum on about each week. But it's just a real nice thing to be doing.
Sure, and you've touched on it there, but I wanted to repeat that this Championship Club podcast is sort of the brainchild of a few representatives from the Championship Club to create a positive voice and discuss the positive effect we believe that it has on the English rugby, on the rugby pyramid or ecosystem, as it was referred to last week. Today's guest, to me, really do demonstrate that. We are going to talk to two guys that were forged in the champ. And first off, we have a man who has won a Grand Slam, 2 Six Nations, a European Championship title, 2 Premiership titles. Tomas Francis, thank you for coming on the show.
You all right? All right, Mikey?
How's things going?
I got it. All right.
Tom, it's been a whirlwind few weeks for yourself. Obviously, the Six Nations finishing 2 weeks ago, a little bit of downtime, and then straight into Champions Cup action. I guess you're a busy man at the moment.
Yeah, non-stop really. It's a busy season this year for the Prem. We pretty much had 2 weeks off, which I didn't. I had to finish Six Nations, so it's pretty much been a straight through season. But can't complain. We get to play rugby, so the world's in chaos and we're getting to play, so we can't complain too much. But
obviously you've had, oh God, how many medals? Your medals must be going, loads of medals this last season. It must be great. So have you had a chance to celebrate any of the victories? So, the Prem Cup, and then obviously Six Nations just recently.
Yeah, I got to celebrate after the Prem in Europe. We had a bit of a double header after the Prem to celebrate both. And I was in camp on the Monday for the Six Nations, so to cut my celebrations a bit short. And then after the Six Nations, we sort of had a premature celebration, commiseration, whatever you want to call it, after the France game. We drowned our sorrows of not getting the slam on the Saturday, and then I was back to Exeter Monday. So, yeah, I put them both to bed, but I guess it'll be the end of the season when you sit back and properly look at it.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we're still not fully out of this situation, and it's sort of, I suppose you've had dates in the diary where you could plan a celebration or just some downtime with the family, and it's when is that coming? Is it coming, or is it never ending for you?
I was supposed to have Christmas off. I was telling Mikey earlier, and I'd planned it. I hadn't been up north for 2 years. I'd asked Rob in advance, got Christmas off, and then we played Glasgow on the Saturday, and a few boys got COVID. Oh. And I ended up testing positive on the Friday before I was meant to go up for my week off. So my week off was spent in isolation with the missus. So I had to get down on one knee and propose to kill the boredom, really. I'm joking. I had it all planned. I had it all planned to propose up north and on a beach and stuff, but COVID cut it short, and I had to do it in the house. But yeah, that was my downtime plan. So I'm scared to plan anything now. I try not to plan too much.
Thank God she said yes, mate. Otherwise, that could have been a weird week in isolation.
It'd been a tough week stuck in the house together if she said no, but luckily she said yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So, Tom, obviously you've kind of gone through it there. You've had a little bit of time to sort of celebrate and almost wallow, I guess, on the Six Nations. Such a mix of emotions. I think not unfair to say prior to the tournament, not many people would have had Wales as favourites, perhaps. But in the end, obviously coming through as champions, even if you weren't able quite to get the Grand Slam, but you've had, a week off, and now I know we're a Championship Rugby show, but it's some game to look forward to on Saturday this weekend. How's prep going ahead of Leinster?
Yeah, it's a massive game, isn't it? Leinster European powerhouses at the minute, and they're coming to Sandy Park, so no, it's exciting. It's been a good week to be involved in at the club, and it's been building nicely. Obviously, it's basically an international, isn't it? You're playing pretty much the Irish team, so now we're excited and boys can't wait for it. Try not to play the game too early in the week, as you know.
Yeah, those arousal levels must be pretty high and hard to contain at times, I imagine. But just touching on sort of levels and sort of, so you've just played Six Nations, and you've got your Champions Cup games, Premiership games, and obviously you've played Champ as well. So there's 4 levels, and all fairly recently, and it's just sort of differentiating those for us and for me personally, and also the listeners. So how do they differ? So Prem, Europe, Six Nations, and then obviously Champ as well, if we could.
For me personally, they're pretty similar as a tight head. In my role, what I take from it is if I can give a solid scrum set piece and do my bit around the park, then that's my job done. And that's how it started for me in the Champ, was just scrum, just hit a scrum. And although the pace is probably a bit slower, the collisions and the physicality at set piece is a breeding ground. A lot of the young boys that play in the Prem now, front rowers, have done their time there. They've played quiggers, or Matt Challenger's had a deep shot in the ruck or something. They've had that time in there. They've played those stalwarts. They've had the game at Bedford when the man on the bench is shouting "Tupai is going to get you" as you run out and stuff like that. It's with some great memories from it, and it's a learning ground. A-League's great. A-League's great for it, but for front five, I think the Champ's the place to learn. I think it sits above under 20s and an A-League for me. That's a year in the Champ is what you need, and it gives you the foundations for front row of what you need. Obviously, Premiership's that little bit faster, and everyone's a bit more on the page, the skill level a bit higher, and then international is probably almost a step back. It goes back to physicality and just pure emotion, and you just got to win that man test pretty much, a lot of it.
Just touched on sort of rivalries in the Champ, and one of my questions I had written down was like, when you were playing in the Champ, who were the guys that gave you a hard time? Did you have a real tough time against anyone? Did anyone, you mentioned that Challoner bopped you on the nose in a ruck? Is there any front row forwards that spring to mind that sort of gave you a real hard time and helped you on your journey? Bodes.
He gave me my chance. He picked me at Donny, then he moved to Jersey, and he taught me how to scrummage, and then he knew I was going to do it and gave me a good scene to when he was against me the next week, if you know what I mean. But probably the one that stands out is Ali 𝘾𝙗𝙗. He was at London Welsh while I was at Scottish, and we had 3 games that year, and it was a proper a ding dong. It was they had one, we had one, and it was a great battle. And we actually had a beer in the Scottish clubhouse after and talked about scrums as we do in Norse as a front row. And then a year later, he'd signed at Exeter with me, and that was one of the good battles. We had 3 games, and it was a proper good battle.
Yeah, I suppose you get to do that daily, weekly now, have those chats and sort of progress your scrum as a result. And you've got one of the best scrums in Europe now, haven't you?
Yeah, if you say so. I won't big it up too much.
Tom, the word journey is one that we like to use a lot in 2020, 2021. But I guess yours, for those that aren't familiar, is exceptional. And for this podcast, I like to just go back, take a little bit of a walk down memory lane with you, and talk about particularly how the championship has played a big part in your journey. So first, I guess, identified as a prospect at Leeds University.
Yeah, Andy Boyd, the concrete wheelie bin himself. He was my uni coach. So I was playing a bit of second team, first team in my first year. I think varsity second year, I finally cracked the first team on the bench a bit. It was interchange to get 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off, and that suited me. And we got to Christmas, and he said, don't go home and drink for 4 weeks with Mikey Casey and put on that weight. He said, if you stay in your uni house, I'll drive you to training and back. I've spoken to Brett Davey at Donny. He's happy to let you come and hold a tackle bag for 4 weeks and get a bit of experience. And yeah, I turned up. I didn't know what to expect, really. I'd never been in any professional setup. I never really fit that mold, to say. And the story goes that I hit the machine and Bode said, sign him up. That's how the story goes. But I ended up staying pretty much. They signed me on, and then it was a weird Champ. There used to be top 8, I think, went into 2, or top 8? Went into 2 falls. I And you played home and away in like a playoff system. And Alex Brown had said he was signing at Exeter. So Bo's just played me a bit in that, which I'd gone from playing for Morton and Norton in, I don't know what level's that, Mikey? Is that
Northeast one.
Yeah, to Champ. And that was my step up. And yeah, I got told to hit a scrum and get to guard. And that was how it started. And I ended up signing a 2-year deal from there, which I ended up not honouring because they got relegated. But yeah, that was how that came about. And
what were your impressions then of, you've played junior rugby, you've played amateur rugby with Malton. So going into that professional environment for the first time, were you just all taking it all in? Were you a bit amazed, or what were your experiences of it like those first few days at Castle Park?
It was a bit of an eye-opener. Luckily, I wasn't in change room 3 then. I got in there. I was in the back change room out the way, so I didn't have my eyes fully open. But I was in awe to be in around that environment. And I was still a uni student. I'd only just got into the uni rugby team. I didn't really know about professionalism. And yeah, I just loved every minute of it. It was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. And yeah, it made me want to go down that track and see what was available.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, sort of in terms of your own like personal development, when did things start to like change for you and in your preparation for rugby? And was it straight away, or was it just sort of a gradual period of time at Donny? Then when you moved to London Scottish, is it your preparation for rugby is clearly has improved from the time as a uni player?
Probably didn't really properly commit to it. I obviously changed when I went to Donny. Yeah. And I'd stopped drinking on a Tuesday maybe for the game. And you know what I mean? Like, I was still at uni living in the rugby house. Yeah. As 𝘾𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗 said to his letter to London Scottish, I'm a secret eater who thinks tight head's a 40-minute position. And that's what I wasn't a professional at Donny. I trained hard, but I trained to eat and drink and to balance the books, as to say. And then I went to Scottish and I didn't play at start. So I had to actually knuckle down a bit and try and sort myself out. Tim Harper there, one of the conditioners there, really helped me. And then I got my chance there. And then probably Donny's Exeter is when I really realised, shit, I need to look after myself off the pitch to get the best on it. But I'd never been in the academy. It was all new to me. Yeah. So it took time, and I was very easily influenced. If someone said, this is good for you, do that, I'd do it. You know what I mean? It took me time to find what works for me. Everyone's different. Some people can eat chicken and veg 4 days a week and they get through it. I can't. I have to have little things to keep me going. But I figured out how to be the best professional I can be.
This is something I don't think I've ever asked you. Obviously, you did your 2 years at Donny. The offer came in from Scottish when Donny went down to National 1. And I can remember it sort of took about that Christmas time, wasn't it, when things started to go your way. When the Exeter offer came in and it was first put to you, like, how did you expect that, or was it a complete surprise?
No, because we had a TV game against London Welsh, I think Sky Sports, and they were tipped to go back up to the Prem and a good team, and we held the scrum, and my agent thought we'd probably get a sniff somewhere, and I didn't have many offers, to be fair. I think I had Glasgow and Exeter. And I went to Glasgow and pretty much shook his hand and said, yeah, I'll come. And then Exeter came in the next day and I did a bit of a U-turn. But yeah, it just clicked then, really. I don't know. I didn't have much offers, but I just wanted the chance to play Prem Rugby. And Mike Friday, who was the Scottish head coach then, he said it'll be the biggest mistake of your career. I'll give you a 2-year deal. Stay here, have a few more years in Champ. You're not professional enough. You're not mature enough to make the step. You'll just hold a bag and come back down. Loads of boys have made the step and not come back down. And I just thought, nah, I can't. I need to give it a shot. Even if I hold a bag for 2 years, it's still better. It's still a good experience. And I never tried that top level. I need to see if I could do it. And yeah, luckily it worked out. I started the first Prem game and Mike Friday Instagrammed me saying, fair play, I know nothing about props, which fair play to him. He's a top bloke.
It's amazing, isn't it? Go on, Mike, you go.
I was just going to say, just interested, was there anything in particular that made you want to go to Exeter over Glasgow at the time? Obviously, Exeter journey as a club has, I guess, kind of coincided with your time being there. I'm not saying the two are inextricably linked, but obviously Exeter's progress over the last 10 years is well documented to one of the, if not the biggest side in Europe. Was there anything particular about the Exeter setup? Was it their sort of development of Championship and their development as a squad that attracted you at all?
Yeah, there wasn't. Obviously, Jack Yenda and Alex Brown had gone there, and both of them were playing quite a bit. So I saw that path, but it was mainly the league. I wanted to play Premiership. I didn't really watch much Pro 14 or know much about it, and the Prem is what I'd grown up watching, and that's what I wanted to play. And when that opportunity came, it was too good to turn down. And I think I sat down with my agent and we said, if we get one Prem appearance this year, it'll be a success. And that was my goal for the year, was do whatever I could to try and get on the bench or get whatever shot I could.
It's amazing. I was just going to touch on the Chiefs story, and sort of one I've watched, having played for Plymouth and Pirates down here, and I think I made my debut against Chiefs. Listen to this, 2002 for Coventry, and they're playing at the county ground, and they had the old speedway track around it. I don't know if you two have seen it, probably too young. And I think Rob Baxter was playing that day, and I look at their story, and I think, how's that? Well, what an achievement! They've done it with unbelievable humility, and they've gone about things the right way. Do they, as a club and as a group, do they still refer to those days? And is it still ingrained within the setup that where they've come from, and how's that filtered through to the players?
It's still there, but it's slowly filtering out, as it has to. To stay at the top, it has to. But you've still got Ian Whitton, who played Champ Rugby or who was around there. You've still got, last year we still had Stino and Dolly who had played Champ for Exeter, who got us promoted. So the foundations are there, and a lot of our boys have played Champ. They've got that foundation. They're grounded. There isn't many, apart from maybe Hoggy and Johnny Gray, who we've brought in. The rest that aren't big name signings. Knowlesy, Slady, Dickey, those boys, they've come up through the academy, and it's quite a grounded club. And Rob Baxter makes sure it stays that way. No one's above banter. No one's treated higher than everyone else. Academy or Stuart Hogg treated the same when they first came up. There's no hierarchy to say, and yeah, I guess that's what makes it what the club it is.
Talking about development, then you alluded to it there. Obviously, that a lot of the Chiefs players have been sort of homegrown and nurtured. There is still quite a strong contingent that did play Champ as well. In terms of what it does offer players, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but there's a dig in the ribs from Chal or a scrimmage in 80 minutes with 𝘾𝙗𝙪𝙗𝙗. Is the Championship, do you think its role for developing front five players is key? And it just seems to be something that we see so often in the Premiership, that players that have played that sort of cold-faced Championship have that experience, and that's the sort of true value that it offers in terms of development.
Yeah, 100%. I think, especially for durability, everyone can have one or two good games as a front five forward, but to play week in, week out for 20 games and get your body through it is something you have to do. You can't train it. You can't do anything. You can prepare as much as you want. You can squat as much as you want in the gym. You can run a Bronco 2 times a day, but until you literally play those scrums and mauls, your body doesn't get used to it. And I think as a front five in particular, the Champ's the best place to do that. I think A-League's a bit fast with not much emphasis on it. And I think under 20s, you're not playing against men. You're playing against people your own age, and scrums aren't the same. But if you look at our pack, most of them have played Champ. Ben Moon was at Champ at Exeter. Peppers with London Welsh. Dickey was a loose head for Plymouth. They'll tell me he drilled me and got me sin bin, but you don't need to listen to that. Jens obviously played at Donny and Thingy. Harry was Nottingham Jersey. I was Donny Scottish. That's the front row as it is. And yeah, I think everyone's benefited from that time there, and the tough games you have, the Pirates away in the mud where you can't see who's who, and it's just a maul and a mud fest, but it's part of the path, I think.
That is a pretty astounding sort of list of players and their history there. And one thing perhaps I'd like to ask you is that obviously you'd argue that in terms of professional rugby development, maybe a little bit of a late starter, particularly at the top end. Do you think that without the championship, that maybe a lot of these players who are now competing at the very top of the Prem, if not internationally, might have missed out because perhaps, the schoolboy system doesn't perhaps reward front row players in the same way it does perhaps other, say, quote unquote, skilled positions?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at me and Harry, neither of us, Harry was in the academy at Wasps, Heps was in Wasps Academy, and they both got released. They fell out of that system. If Champ wasn't there to I don't know, give him the shot. And yeah, I know Champ gets a bad name, there's no money, but for that age bracket, it's invaluable. You're not going to get much money going and having a real job, but if you have the chance for 2 years, say, to play week in, week out, and just it's food to mouth, isn't it? You just basically get enough to live on, but you're getting that shot and that development which you need, and yeah, it's invaluable, really.
Yeah, and I think that's where we were doing the Champ Team of the Week last week, and you see some real value in those guys that have, like two that spring to mind really recently, Henry Purdy and Luke Wallace. Both of them, with their respective clubs released through injury or just tough times, whatever it was, both dropped down. I think both at Cov, and within a year, 6 months to a year. I mean, Henry Purdy starts every week for Bristol, and he's having an absolute worldie of a season.
Yeah.
Luke's now starting for Tigers every week, and I think without that championship experience, you then lose those guys to other leagues or other countries, and it's a great place to bounce back and find your career pathway again.
100%, and without it, a lot of boys wouldn't be where they are now, and a lot of our squad at Exeter wouldn't be where they are, and it needs to stay, it needs improving. This season seems to be creating a lot of excitement. To be fair, was quite a few teams up at the top, and it's quite an exciting format. And yeah, it's tough because you need to still be able to get the academy boys into it. I think like the lone boys are a key part of the Champ, but they need to go for the year. I don't think they can dip in and out. I think they should be released to a club and that's it. They're there for the whole time, unless there was a mad injury rush at the senior club, obviously, because it's an experience which I enjoyed it. I'd still play rugby if I was playing for Moulton. I'd go out afterwards and have beers with the boys. That's what I look forward to. That's what I play rugby for. And Champs accentuates that. It's not as fast. You can have maybe a bit less training depending on the schedules and stuff. And it teaches you more about yourself and the values of rugby, which I think that's what this beautiful game is about. Is I can have a fight with Heppers for 40 minutes on a pitch and then have a beer afterwards. And it doesn't happen as much as Prem because it can't. It's that next step up, but that's what I love about it.
So it would be definitely, if you had, let's say, a young, ambitious 19, 20-year-old prop forward, maybe hadn't had the academy love that he wanted, or he's fallen out of one, would that be get your CV down to some Champ DORs? That'd be your advice? Yeah,
and I talk to the academy coaches at Exeter, and I say the young props need to go for you. Every one of them needs to go, and like 𝘾𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗 was in our academy a few years ago, went to Jersey, and then he ended up starting for Bristol for years. And he could have stayed at Exeter and played a bit of A-League, gone on loan to Taunton, but he took the step to say, "Nah, I'm going to go and sign for a Champ club full time," and it's worked out for him. And it is tough because it's a gamble, isn't it? If it doesn't work, then you haven't got many years, so you probably need to go and get a different career. But I think as a front row or front five, it's a gamble worth taking, and everyone needs it. I think it's part of the process, I think.
Yeah, I think also I don't want to get too much into the funding side of it, but if it's reduced, and then if you drop down and you can't have, say, a Jersey experience, which are full time, then that opportunity to bounce back is reduced. So by having full time or semi-pro clubs, it gives you a better opportunity to then, kick on. Or what's wrong with having a whole career in rugby in the Championship? Do you know what I mean? And producing a good product, which is on place at the weekends at the moment. So it's a real important aspect of it.
Yeah, and where the TV deals and BT Sport and the rugby's going on that commercial side, there's definitely space to get more Champ on the telly. And the few games that have been on this year have been, the quality's up there. boys haven't played rugby for 12 months, so everyone's buzzing to play. And with people sat at home and no crowds, it needs pushing out there. The platform to watch needs to grow, and it's there to do. And it's not what people think. There's still those games where you've got Pirates away on the boggy pitch, and that's part of it. But Ealing's got a 4G. Every game they play is going to be exciting to watch now, and you're going to have that run in rugby. And yeah,
I think sometimes we talk about Pirates. I played down there for years, and when you start playing rugby, you'll notice at Moulton, and that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's how we all started as rugby players. We all started as in our junior clubs, and it wasn't the fancy stadiums, and that's why it's so good, and that's why it's so raw, and that's sort of like champ rugby, isn't it? It's gritty, it's raw. It's a bit different. You've got the mad Cornishman giving you a load of grief right next to you in your face, and those are real like stories and real enjoyable times as a player, and that's what it's about. I think the Champ, and it should we should be proud of that, and it's something that we're really shouting about.
Yeah, 100%, and yeah. Obviously, it's not bad every time. Pirates on a sunny day you'll get that nice pitch, but it brings back that the mudslide after playing as a kid, and you finish and you go and find the biggest puddle and go straight through it head first, and that's what everyone does as a kid, isn't it? And you've still got that in you even as a professional.
Interesting one, Tom, and I don't want to get you in trouble with this one, but obviously I know over the years Exeter and Saracens have enjoyed sort of a pretty intense rivalry towards the top of the Premier and European competitions. Was there a wry smile on your face when you saw that they got beaten at Pirates in week 1 this year?
Yeah, there was. I think we played Bath away. I think we just beaten Bath away. And I think just after we sang our winning song, someone shouted out, Pirates have beaten Sarries. And we had another song. But it's that rivalry with Sarries. And I mean, it's sad to see them drop down. And it's a different story, all that, isn't it? But
makes for an entertaining champ, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Ealing are pushing them hard this year, and Donny and Pirates it's an exciting time. But yeah, we were very happy to see that first result. It was put a smile on our faces.
Tom, I think you've been a brilliant guest. Thank you very much for your time. It's been fantastic to hear some of your stories from your time in the Championship. I know you've got a very busy few weeks coming up, so best of luck on Saturday at Leinster, and best of luck for the rest of the season, mate. Cheers,
boys, and great job you're doing. Keep up. Cheers.
Yes, Tom.
You're listening to the Championship Clubs podcast with me, Michael Casey, and Ben Gulliver. Check us out on social media at Champ Clubs Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Welcome back for part 2 of the Championship Clubs podcast. We started strong, and there is going to be no let up with the guests at all. Fresh from a historic Six Nations campaign with Scotland, we welcome guest number 2 for today, Ali Price. Welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, Pricey, long time no see. It's been a good 5 years. Well, but longer than that, I think.
Oh, longer, yeah.
So yeah, just thinking, and I don't know if we should go there or not, but I'd just like to clear something up. And we once had a chat on a Jersey away trip at 8 o'clock in the morning over a pint, and I want to know if my words of wisdom have helped you on your career to where you are now.
That is the reason I'm in the position I'm in right now. Gully.
I dread
that was
to
a
think.
really good trip, that.
So, Ali, you obviously enjoyed a fantastic Six Nations. Not much time to rest before being back into European action with Glasgow. Have you had a little bit of chance now to recuperate, and look back on the tournament?
Yeah, so I've been off this week, just with how the fixtures have fallen. Obviously, losing to Montpellier last Friday, it's kind of given us a natural break, which, mentally more than anything, it's quite nice to have. Obviously, the Six Nations, 8-9 weeks, and it's pretty intense. So I think mentally, it's quite nice to just switch off from the kind of pressures of that. And then when I look back now at what has been a brilliant couple of months, we managed to achieve a couple of pretty special results. And it's almost on the flip side of that. It's like what could have been. The 2 home games that we narrowly lost. ultimately we lost out on the tournament by 4 points. You know, 3 points in the Ireland game and 1 point in that Wales game. So, yeah, look, it was pretty good way to end in Paris, and I think we're a squad that's going places, but at the same time, I think it's almost a bit bittersweet because it was, we knew we had it within us to sort of been challenging at the top of that table, and you know, it's Six Nations is tough, and you end up finishing fourth, but we had a couple of brilliant results within that.
Yeah, we were chatting to Tom Francis earlier, and we were talking about, obviously it's a little bit bittersweet, but those 2 away wins, you know, are special and something that Scotland haven't done for years. Did you get a chance to celebrate those while you were there, or is that something that you guys are going to have to do later down in the year?
It was something that that kind of drove us on, you know, to put those kind of results in, was that we were in a very unique and special situation with the kind of bubble that we were in that, you know, we were getting tested regularly for COVID, and obviously we're all in the hotels together. So, you know, when you finish the game, it was a good opportunity to, you know, have a beer with each other and reflect on what we'd done. You know, England was 38 years, I think.
1983, I think, the last one at Twickenham I've got in my notes. So yeah, I can't do the maths, but it's a long time.
Yeah, you know, that wasn't lost on us. We kind of, we knew how special it was. The England game, we actually flew straight back up to Edinburgh after the match. So by the time we'd got in, it was pretty late. But I think the way we finished in Paris, you know, that was a good way to close the tournament off, obviously with a win, but another special win. And you kind of look back and, you know, in the last few months anyway, going back to the autumn and November, we beat Wales in Wales for the first time for a few years as well. And I think slowly we're kind of ticking these kind of wins off that haven't happened for a while. And, you know, we're very aware of that. And there was a big, I don't know, I feel like the pressure's on, Scotland can win at home, but they can't win these big games away. And that's kind of off our backs. But at the same time, then we didn't do the job at home, and we just got to put it all together now, I think.
Yeah. So it's amazing the achievements, and you know, we speak about a journey. We'll speak about your own personal journey in a little while, and that Scotland team and your journey within it has I think has changed massively this sort of past 12 to 18 months, and you're getting more starts. I think you played the full 80 in France as well, didn't you? So, you know, what sort of changed for you personally, and you know, why has that happened? Did it come more confidence in your own ability, or is it just a bit more, just more settled within the squad?
I think a combination of things. Experience is massive, and I think that obviously the more you play, the more experience you get, and just being in situations in games, whether it's positive or negative, you learn from it, and just being in those situations obviously helps. I put a lot down to, even though, you know, we'd played sort of 4 games of last year's Six Nations before kind of lockdown hit. I used the first lockdown to kind of get myself in good shape. I started off lockdown a bit lost, you know, like a lot of people. My schedule was taken away, and you know, I'm someone that loves a routine. I like to, you know, I've got to be here at 9 a.m. You know, I like to have things to do, and suddenly that was taken away for a few months. And to begin with, I got a bit lost with, you know, how to go about it. And it would have been easy for me to get stuck in that. You know, I'm not someone that's that genetically gifted. My metabolism isn't that great. You know, it would have been easy to kind of go to bed at 2-3 in the morning, wake up at lunchtime, eat whatever I want, you know, just play the PlayStation all day and complain about, you know, how limited life is at the moment. But And I did that for a good week, 10 days when it all started. I got a bit lost, but then, set the alarm for 9 o'clock and I was like, right, I'm going to start running. And turned into a bit of 𝘾𝙗𝙪𝙗𝙗. I got the running bug massively, but it was the best thing that could have happened. I dropped 10 kilos and fitness wise, in terms of like cardio, I was in the best shape I've ever been in. And then when I got back into rugby, I think that's sort of helped with the season I've had. And I put it down to kind of those April, May, June months of last year. I think's really helped with my performances of the last few months anyway.
Did you dive on these Strava 5K challenges and things like that, Ali?
I was all over Strava, mate.
So let's talk a bit about yourself. And obviously this is a championship show, and we are really keen to promote the role that we believe the division plays in developing talent, amongst other things. You now have 42 caps for Scotland. You're closing on 100 appearances for Glasgow. But first, in terms of sort of senior rugby, recognised at Bedford Blues, of course. Just let us know a little bit more about that journey and a bit about what happened sort of from breaking out at Goldington Road into getting involved in the Scottish setup.
So obviously was at school, and my first 15 coach at school put me in touch with a guy called 𝘾𝙤𝙢𝙤𝙤𝙤, who was the head of like the under-19 team at Bedford, the academy at Bedford, which, it was renowned as kind of the best non-premiership academy going at the time. And I was at a bit of a loose end, to be honest. I was finishing school, and that would have been the end of the road in terms of, for me anyway, pursuing like, I guess, the rugby dream and the rugby journey. I didn't really know where I was going to go or end up. I guess the route was to go to university, study, and what would have been. So yeah, got in touch and went along to Bedford after school for a few months on a Tuesday and Thursday night, training. I think there's 4 or 5 9s there, and this was the under-19 team. I managed to kind of get myself in a position where I ended up playing some games for the under-19 team, and enjoyed that for a couple of years. And then more so in my sort of second year, so I've kind of just left school, 18, 19, started to be sort of integrated into the first team squad at Bedford, and that was my first taste of sort of training with adults. Really, you come from school and you've obviously just played age groups, so
I can remember joining Bedford, and you'd have been really young, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. And I can remember we were training, I forgot the name of the place, but it's Alexander Road, the training ground down there. And we're doing kickoff receipts, and he's got the scrum halves, listen to this. So he has the scrum halves doing box kicks onto second rows receiving a kickoff. And I remember he absolutely peppered you because you weren't nailing it. And looking back, you were 18 years old trying to land a box kick on like a 50p spot. It was hilarious.
And to this day, the hardest drill in rugby, I swear, is when a coach puts out a box of cones and you've got to box kick it and land it in the box. It is the hardest thing you'll ever do, I swear. Yeah.
So you got that hard skill, and then we're trying to catch it as well. It's like with a lift. This drill was like amazing. And he gave you a new one, didn't he? It was hilarious.
Yeah, you have to look. I think that's another thing. You kind of get, well, for me anyway, you kind of get thrown in the deep end, and it is kind of sink or swim. You find out if you're good enough or not fairly quickly. At the same time, you have to. You're not the finished article, are you? You've come out of school, so you've got to learn and learn pretty fast if you're not up to speed. But yeah, like a couple of years in the academy, and ended up moving through to Bedford, and had, I think, 2 seasons, with the first team. but for me, it was the first opportunity to play adult rugby. That was the big thing for me, that Bedford gave me, you know, that exposure to the game, to professional rugby, an environment where we were in training sort of three and a bit days a week, gym programs. You know, I when I first walked in the gym, this is a bit noisy, but like, you know, with the whole bench press and stuff like that, couldn't even bench press 60 kilos. I'd never been in the gym. It wasn't something I'd ever done. And they kind of put all that in place. You know, you've got gym programs, strength and conditioning. And so, yeah, I'll be forever grateful for the start they kind of gave me into pro rugby. And from then it kind of, I went down the Scottish route. My mum's Scottish. So I was always aware of that. And I think growing up down in England, there was me, my brother and my dad, and obviously my mum, and I felt like it was the right thing to do. You know, it makes her proud. Like, my dad's obviously incredibly proud of what I've achieved, and he supports me with the decisions I make. But I felt like it was a good way of giving something, you know, to my mum and pursuing that route. And it was kind of after my under-20s year with Scotland that Gregor approached me about joining Glasgow in their academy. So at 21 years old. And for me, it was a risk. It was, but I also saw it as, you know, I've got nothing to lose. Coming up to Glasgow, I've got nothing to lose. And I saw it as again another sort of step, completely full time. And yeah, I was going to be in the academy, but you know, you're training with internationals. You know, you're integrated within the first team squad at Glasgow, and I just saw it as another progression, really. But that all comes off the back of what started at Bedford, to be honest.
I've got a question then, and this is for you, Gully, and you can answer it as honest as you like. We'll see. So you'll obviously have played with some very talented players in all positions in your time in the Champ. When Ali arrived at Bedford, did you think that this is going to be a future international scrum half? Was that the level of talent that you saw at him then, or was that not the case?
You're on the spot, mate. Jeez.
I know. I've done you here.
Well, I could probably answer it for him. In that, if he didn't want to say it, in that I don't know if I feel like I progressed. Certainly, I've matured a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm 27 now, so I'm talking sort of 24, 25, and I don't even know if I would have believed back then I'd have gone on to be having the career I'm having. I feel like I've had to work incredibly hard, but I feel like I've developed quite late. I remember some boys when I came up to Glasgow, they couldn't believe that I'd come up after playing under 20s. They didn't think I was good enough. And they were academy boys at Glasgow. There was a few comments when I first came up. So I feel like I feel like, especially the last few years, I've definitely kind of matured and everything's slowly coming together. But I don't know if Gully would have disagreed. But
the maturity side of it is clear. It's clear to see, because I've got real fond memories of Pricey and you and Bassett as well. Josh Bassett were, you know, thick as thieves, and I can remember you guys being in the gym, and every time Paddy Hugman turned his back, you'd be shouting and, you know, cheating on the weights and just having a real laugh. And those two, the memories I have from the pair of them is just the energy and the fun they had around the boys. And when they left, it was a real hole in our squad. In terms of playing ability, we didn't really get to see a great deal of Pricey, but his skill level was really high. And, you know, when he got the move, and you sort of track people's careers, and, you know, sort of, we just sort of super proud of what you've done. And, you know, a little part of that journey was at Bedford, and the rest of it is all you, and as it always is. But I think I think you were quite fortunate at the time at Bedford as well. You had some good older guys around you, like Ian Vass was there, and Vassy coaches at Northampton now, and they're going to have a real positive influence on you at an early age. And I think that tell me if I'm wrong, but that could have helped you early on as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think Bedford's brilliant for the culture side of the game as well. I guess coming out of school, you never had that rugby, the club or rugby club experience, and Bedford's right up there in terms of sort of the culture off the field, and led by Mike Gully. Toops was there, still playing. Well, he only retired recently actually, but he was obviously playing. Led the way, and I think that's massive as well. It was such a fun environment to be in, and yeah, I think one of the things one of the characteristics that I think is quite strong in me is like positivity, energy. Like I'm generally a pretty happy guy, so I think that the fact that I was in an environment that was like that as well. We had some brilliant events, brilliant day sessions, and that all builds character. And it's something that I think is not really mentioned that much, is kind of off the field. People only see the performances and the results on the weekend, but a massive part of the game is how you connect off the field and the kind of culture behind the scenes. And it's something that's very strong at Glasgow, but it's very unique at Bedford, I think, anyway.
I guess what? Go on, Gully.
I was going to say, because you get the move to Glasgow, and is it an academy contract? And then, if I'm wrong, just let me know. But do you play a bit for Stirling County as well at that time? So that is of a similar level, or is it a little bit lower? Where does that level of rugby sit in comparison to Champ Rugby, and again in your development, I suppose?
I think at the time, so now up here they have the Super Six, which is sort of trying to bridge the gap. Yeah. Which is slightly different, but at the time, I'd have put kind of the Scottish Premiership sort of mid. If you threw in the top 5 teams of the Scottish Premiership into the Championship, probably be around mid table. I'd have thought mid table to battling, competitive. But again, like Gully said, I played 8-10 games at Bedford, and then it's very easy to come up to like a professional team or whatever that play in a professional league and not get any game time. But it was good to get some adult rugby under my belt. So yeah, I had a couple of years at Stirling and then at Ayr for the first sort of 3 years that I was up here.
I guess something that seems apparent to me from listening to both of you guys talk about your career, and something that you've said, is obviously that your maturity as a rugby player perhaps came a little bit later in your career. It was at Bedford perhaps that gave you that showcase to be put on the radar of the Scotland 20s. I'd imagine there are, and there's examples out there of rugby players that maybe don't quite come into their prime until their early to mid 20s. And by that point, a lot of Premiership academy opportunities are perhaps missed. Do you feel that is where the role of something like the Bedford Blues Academy can be so valuable?
Yeah, 100%. And, championship teams in general, not everyone comes in the finished article. You get some brilliant players that are fresh out of school and they take to rugby like it's nothing. You can throw them in any team and they're 19 and they go, they're flying. But for the vast majority, that's not the case at all. And kind of going back to what Bolt said on the last episode of this, like I completely agree with him. Like if you take out levels below the Premiership, it just weakens what's at the top, and not everyone's going to get a game at the top level, and that's the reality of it. There's only 23 guys a week that can play, and it's a business. You need to win. You need to win games. You're not going to just give a kid a game for the sake of it. I think it's brilliant for building experience and character. certainly for me, you know, playing with, you know, the age range is massive in the Championship and in the Scottish Premiership up here. You know, you've got young kids that are starting their journey, and then you've got guys that are experienced and you know, mid-30s, and they've been doing the rounds for a number of years. You know, it's very valuable.
Do you think that's perhaps now the ambition of this Super 6 competition that you discussed to, as you say, there's only a very finite amount of places in the top levels, academies obviously up in Scotland, you've just got the 2 pro teams, and this perhaps Super 6 is a model that is comparable up north to what the Championship has, to make sure that there isn't that dropout of talent that maybe develops a little later on?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like what I said, like, you know, if you've got a squad of 40, 45 guys and you know, kind of 30 are in the rotation, you've got young guys that aren't going to play for a number of weeks or whatever, and it's a good sort of stepping stone, and it also gets people playing rugby. You know, there's no point in having 10 young lads that have the potential but they never get to show it. You know, I think that's a big thing with rugby that's forgotten, or any professional sport, is that you do need an element of luck to probably get yourself playing at some point. You know, you might get given a shot, but I feel like you need an element of luck. It might be the bad fortune to someone ahead of you or whatever to kind of get that opportunity. Obviously it's down to you to take that, but yeah, I think a big thing that I found out, and you do find out, is that, you know, when you play school rugby or academy rugby and you're on the bench, for example, you know you're going to get a bit of a game. They're always going to put you on, and then I think a big eye opener for me was, you know, it's a game where you're on the bench and you don't get put on, and your mum and dad are like, oh, why didn't they play you? They could have just put you on, and you're like, well, it's not how it works anymore, you know. You know, we need to win the games, and the coaches feel like they do the best for the result. It's not about just giving someone a game anymore.
Interesting. I was going to just touch on something Peter Lyden mentioned last week as well, was in the Irish sort of setup, and there's been like an influx of Irish players that pop into the Championship, and then they sort of have a good career and maybe bounce back. Up in Scotland, is it something that you'd recommend to any of the academy lads that have maybe dropped out, have been released from their academy contracts, is look at a Championship contract?
Yeah, 100%. I think the way it's structured, you're getting competitive rugby, you know, in a competitive league, which I think it's a good way. You know, everyone knows you know the Championship's a massive shop window. If you perform well, then you're going to get picked up, and it can lead to obviously offers from Premiership clubs or Pro 14 or Pro D2. You know, it's so valuable. I think, you know, like we've spoke about, there's a very limited number of players that play week in, week out at you know, the Pro 14 Premiership level. But that doesn't mean that everyone else should just be forgotten about, I think. Or not forgotten about, that's the wrong word, but not be given the opportunity, you know? Yeah.
Sort of like when I think when we were at Bedford, we played Stirling County in the B&I Cup, and I think that's maybe something that I loved it as a player. It was great to play these, you know, your Irish and your Welsh and your Scottish teams. And did you manage to play it in any of those games for Ayr or Stirling, or had it stopped by then?
I think it stopped by the time I played, because the year I moved up to Glasgow, I did my ACL in pre-season. So the first season I went up there, I missed the whole year. I didn't get back till sort of May time. So the season had gone, and then I'm pretty sure it finished. Yeah, I don't think I played in any B&I Cup, but again, that felt, or when I was at Bedford anyway, that was a great opportunity for some of the younger lads or whatever to get a run out. I thought it was a brilliant competition. Yeah, I remember trips up to Melrose and
Yeah.
Like you said, Stirling, and then you got the sort of Irish provinces. It was it was another opportunity to give young guys especially a game. And then up here, the Scottish team saw that as a step up from the Premiership. So it was that was sort of, we're playing against the provincial A sides from Ireland or the Championship teams, and it's a good chance to show where the Premiership sides are at. So I think it was valuable to everyone, to be honest.
Nice.
Do you obviously you did start off in Bedford? It's not a million miles from your home. Do you keep an eye on Championship results? Do you see how the Blues are going week to week still?
Yeah, I still follow them on obviously follow the social media and follow how they're getting on. Caught the odd game when Sky was showing matches, and I was just saying to Gully, it's just how things are. Obviously, rugby's played on the weekends, and generally when there's a Championship game, I'd have a game. I've not been able to get back down. It's a family club, and I'd love to just come down and watch a game again. It's been a long time. I was saying to Gully, I've not been able to make it down for a number of years, but it's not lost on me kind of what Bedford has done for where I'm at now. That they gave me the start, the springboard to where I'm sat, and yes, I'll be forever grateful for that. And when there's still Mike Gully and those boys kicking around, I know that it'd be enjoyable. It'd be enjoyable match day and evening if I was to ever be able to get back on the game there.
We've talked on this show before, and particularly with our previous guest Tom, that the Championship seems to have developed a reputation of developing a lot of front row forwards, and sometimes that's attributed to the fact that it's quite a hard and tough and physical division. As part of the Champ Club's podcast, we put out a sort of an ex-Championship team of the week from players that have played in the Europe previously. And I think, Gully, you'll be able to correct me on this, but the backline has something like 4 or 5 Bedford players, and the names, obviously yourself, you were included in that list, were impressive. Bedford have always been a side that have got a bit of a reputation for a bit of that sort of duet band of rugby. They like to put a bit coast to coast and encourage ball playing, I feel. Did you feel that when you were there?
Yeah, definitely. Play a great brand of rugby. Very exciting to watch and very exciting to play in. Mikey Gully and the coaches had a brilliant philosophy on how they like to play the game, and they let you express yourself, which I think is important. There's too much made of trying to organise and structure every part of the game. At the end of the day, after the first couple of phases of a set piece, it's just jouet. You need to be able to just play and bounce to space and find space. And I think Bedford definitely have that motto and mentality. And it's quite interesting. Coming up to Glasgow, they play the exact same way, with Gregor initially as head coach, and then Dave Rennie came in, and it was very much about, it doesn't matter where you are on the field. We've got the ability and the sort of plays to hurt teams. They want to drop 3-4 guys into the backfield. Well, there's going to be space in the front line, so it doesn't matter if we're in our 22. Let's have a crack. And everyone likes playing sort of free flowing attacking rugby.
I think as well, like just touch on your point, Mikey. Sometimes you look at the players from the front five, and then we go through the team, and you see the guys that play week in, week out. That like I refer to Josh Bassett. I mean, he's now a Wasp legend, isn't he? And he was scoring tries for fun at Bedford in a similar philosophy, and it produces players from 1 to 15. It produces good characters as well, I think, and that's something that we definitely need to share a bit more of.
Yeah, 100%. I think the year I left, Josh was the highest the highest try scorer in the league, I think.
Yeah.
And he's gone on to do incredibly well at Horse. I think he just re-signed as well, didn't he?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I spoke, I'm good friends with Mike 𝘾𝙗𝙙𝙗𝙗, and when he signed, he said, "Look, mate, Josh is the big dog up here, mate. Whatever he's." I was like, "This is brilliant," because he was just going on like the memories of you two.
Yeah, well, he's
look at your both.
He's got 2 kids now.
I know, and a receding hairline. Let's get that in there.
Well, I couldn't comment on that. My hairline's still strong, actually. I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Well, we are in danger of being far too complimentary about Bedford for someone that works for Doncaster Knights. Ali, thank you very much for your time today. It's been brilliant having you on the podcast. I hope everyone has enjoyed listening. We are now looking at advertising options for this podcast. If anyone is interested, please drop us a message at Champ Clubs Pod. Keep listening and enjoy the show. Thank you. That was the Championship Club podcast with Michael Casey and Ben Gulliver. Check us out on social media at Champ Clubs Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe and like our YouTube channel.